Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson, and today I'm joined by Lin-Moy, alternative and Chinese medicine expert and founder of Integrative Healing Arts NYC, where she helps couples conceive naturally using her fertility protocols and Chinese medicine. Our conversation today is an introduction to Chinese medicine as a regenerative approach to wellness and a focus on health span, not lifespan. Listen in to find out why Tsao says you are your best doctor and why it's so important to manage your thoughts, whether you're trying to conceive or simply support your best health. Tsao, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me, Julie.
I am excited for our conversation. I cannot wait to share you with my audience. I know listeners are going to get so much value out of this.
Awesome.
So I have so many things I want to ask you, but I love to start just to give listeners a feel for you of, how did you become interested in Chinese medicine or decide to, practice Chinese medicine and specialize in helping women, naturally improve fertility?
Great question. So, Chinese medicine is not necessarily, something that, it's not on the list of, let's say, occupations, to choose when you're at school. And right. I would have to say, I was in business before, so I've had several incarnations, but one of the things is that the big part of it is the paradigm of it, the philosophy that is in East Asian medicine, and really the idea that you are helping a person to heal themselves, right? That we have this natural ability, and it's Chinese medicine or East Asian medicine is about transformation and not transaction. Right. So the idea is that you're not going to be on herbs for life or medication for life, that you are able to regenerate yourself. And so I kind of look at like Western medicine. So I grew up in a family of Western medicine, and it, the science part of it, that was interesting. But the idea that, people are sick, and once they're sick, they really never get better, and unless they're taking medication. So there's an idea which is very different, where, the Western model is kind of a degenerative medicine versus regenerative. And, you cut yourself and you're able to, your body actually will heal it, right? Will close up the wound. And so this is why would we say, like in certain cases, it'll never change, because we're always in this process of change and evolving and really getting well, not getting sicker. And so philosophically, with Chinese medicine, we're looking at their 8 branches that include not just acupuncture, but body work, herbal medicine, food medicine, food theory, exercise, mindfulness, like a kind of a meditation. We also have feng shui, which is looking at your environment in the flow of energy. And then also astrology, right? Like this is like we are part of the cosmos. And it's a spiritual medicine, right? It's not a religion. It's a spiritual medicine. And it's about the individual kind of helping themselves to be better. And so this is really, it resonates. It resonates with me that
yes,
you can get better. Yeah. You may need help. Yes. And it's not to say that Western medicine isn't helpful and life-saving. It's just that model, that's their really kind of like their only model of like, oh, you needed us because you weren't able to overcome your situation. And therefore you're almost like a disabled person that'll always need this, once you got to this point, then, like no hope. Right. So in East Asian medicine, it's really like the idea is you're always working in a practice, like this practice of getting better, practice of consciousness and mind-body connection, right? Because when we're aware of our body, our mind, our thoughts, our energy, we can do something about it. If we don't, we say like, oh, I don't even know. Like with women, I find like, oh, where are you in your cycle? They go like, oh, I don't know. I have to check my phone. And it's kind of like, how does this electronic object knows more about you than you know about yourself? It's actually, happening in your body that, and so you start to see the difference of almost like outsourcing all of your parts to someone else or something else. And that's really causes like this, we call like a cognitive dissonance, or like feeling like you're disassociated from your own self. And, one of the things, maybe this is kind of like a different kind of conversation, is that the more the technology, we start to see the more of this kind of aloneness and not really feeling connected, even though we have connection, right? But not even the connection with ourselves, right? And so really that medicine is really like, you are your own doctor. You're your best doctor, right? I can't tell you how you feel. You know how you feel. You share with me how you feel, and I can try and help you to feel better, right? And so it's a collaboration also. It's not a power differential. It's not a hierarchy, right? And that's when we look at the Western, we're looking at the health model also, is the idea that there's this hierarchy. Someone has more power than you over your health destiny. And so getting back to how did I end up, being attracted to it, is really like something that is for the rest of my life, that I can be studying this medicine, because there's thousands and thousands of years of evidence, of cases, of really learning from the natural world without, like real evidence of people who were very ill or had problems. And these are different kinds of solutions, right? It's also not a one size fits all. It's really different tenets and guidelines to look at, right? And so that's also, you need to always be working as a practitioner to make yourself better in order to help your patients.
Amazing growth opportunity for you.
Because I always want to get better. It's,
of course,
it's exciting,
because that's always growing and healing and changing and learning and expanding. You hit on so many things I want to dive into, but I want to just highlight, the things that I said, we've never talked about Chinese medicine before on the podcast. Yay. But, and so somebody who's completely unfamiliar probably is sitting there thinking, well, these are the things Julie's always talking about on the podcast, right? It's this difference of, yes, not only can we heal, we're created to heal. And the difference in approaches and models. And I always say, God forbid I need emergency surgery, I am going to a Western trained acute care surgeon, which you may have a different take on. But I think that's what it's really designed for and what it's good at. And the rest tends to be a disservice to people.
Correct. It's being used inappropriately.
Right.
So it's like every time you go to an emergency room, and what are you going to get? Emergency medicine. Right. And those medicines are really are life-saving, right? They get you from going one direction to go the other direction, but then that's it.
But then what?
And then what? So the idea is you want to never get to that. You want to avoid getting to that place by, being responsible for your health, for the choices you make. And that means, making sure to educate yourself, to cut through all of the information that's, that is driven by industries that also are able to kind of say things that may not really be true. So it's important for everybody to take charge of their, of educating themselves. Right?
And I love that you say that. I wanted to circle back to that. And then another, at least one other point that you made as far as, and it is the model most of us grew up in, right? The doctor has all the answers. We go for the fix, and people tend to get into this cycle of, they want the pill. They believe like that's the answer. Go get a pill. The doctor will fix you. Don't be disrespectful. Don't question the doctor. And you and I spend our time saying like, no, it's you. This is your body.
It doesn't resonate. That's the thing is when, someone will, or like a test is like a sentence. And, that means this. Because we're always in this state of movement and growth and shifting, right? We regenerate our whole body we get completely new cells. Like every single cell in our body gets, regenerated or replaced over a certain period of time. Usually say a 7-year cycle, which interestingly is one of the cycles in Chinese medicine that they talk about growth cycles, from 0 to, your reproductive cycle, and they tend to be in alignment with, let's say, hormonal shifts and surges that bring, puberty on and bring on adulthood, and then being able to, hold a baby, and then later on into menopause, right? So we look at different stages of growth and development. And so it's very nice from that perspective. We look at the ancients were looking at, by the age of 7 or so, the baby teeth fall out and you get the adult teeth, and then the hair actually grows in, like kids usually have like very thin, and then they get to a certain age and you see that they start to grow and their voice changes, and then menarche comes up. And so you start to look at the energy or their chi, their life force. What is it at different stages? And that's the physiological and neurological development, right? And in terms of, learning and experiencing the world and getting that feedback. So very much so the ancients looked at that as well and were like, there are different stages that occur or let's say surges, right? Like growth spurts and evolution, evolving. So we always have that ability. It doesn't really stop. Right. It might slow down a little bit. Like we don't have to keep growing tall like that right. Kind of, okay, we're good. We're, we've reached a certain height but the rest of it is all a matter of really like, making sure everything's working really well. And when it's not, to do something about it, to repair it.
And that's right into that regenerative.
Right. We have the capacity to regenerate, right? Yeah. Every day we do. But once we get an interruption or something happens, it's not the symptoms or when we experience what we call illness. And I'm looking at it from a new, like a reframe of when you experience those symptoms, which everyone calls getting sick. If we look at it as more as like getting well, your body is in the process of getting well, which means spiking a fever to push out an infection, right? So we always look at it as, that's a bad thing. We're getting sick. No, actually, your body is helping itself to get well. It's doing this thing, which maybe feel unpleasant, but you have to look at, it's serving a purpose, and we need to help it along, not suppress it. Just like, okay, something else is going on. And the beauty with Chinese medicine, we look at the whole pattern. It's not just like, oh, I have a stomach problem, the problem with my stomach. Oh, I have digestive issues. I have like constipation, diarrhea. That's the problem is the intestines. Like actually, there's a systemic thing going on because that's where you're identifying symptoms and the inflammation. But we've got to look at where did it begin? Yeah, it's
Right.
part of a full on something else as a trigger. So this is the starting point where it's alerting us, but it's more than just the symptom.
I love that. And if we circled back to everything I wanted to hit on, we would be here for 3 hours.
Sure.
But this idea that I want to circle all the way back because you just brought it up again and about awareness, right?
Yeah.
About this disconnect that we have from our bodies. I see this especially in the autoimmune community. I think in general, because of, like you mentioned, technology and society, and, but then especially once people are experiencing symptoms, and it's almost like it becomes a survival skill to disconnect, right? I'm not going to focus on the pain. And especially if you're in that mindset of there's nothing I can do about it anyway. And so it's so important. I say it all the time, symptoms are information, like that's your body is telling you something. So do you have trick question here, but like, what is a way that you help people reconnect? Like, do you have a recommendation for people?
Absolutely. Well, one of the best things for people that that have autoimmune conditions, right? We know that stress is a huge factor, right? And so that is the nervous system that needs to regulate itself. And so we look at their adrenals, and from there, we're looking at they're experiencing anxiety, right? Because that is actually in Chinese medicine, we're looking at this connection between the heart and the small intestine, right? And anxiety, when we're looking at the mind, not the brain, we're looking at those like thoughts of worry and overthinking things. And so what happens is when someone is experiencing, inflammation and they don't know where it's coming from, then it starts the like, what did I do? What is it? What did I eat? And then lots and lots of overthinking and more stress, which then in turn like creates that vicious cycle. And so looking at eliminating things first identifying stuff that is like a source of and eliminating it. And I mean, not just like food stuff, like there are definitely guidelines. You just need to like eliminate lots of things that are inflammatory. Just move them out, give your body a break, simplify it so you're not overloading it. Right? And then the other thing too is, there are people that are triggers, certain situations to be addressed. Like, and, oftentimes there are big events like moving or a new job, or, someone becomes really ill or having a child, or, children going away to school, getting married, getting divorced. So, like, there are all of those things. And then, this other one, they said there are 10 big things like moving and stuff, but also I think they need to put on the list is infertility, right?
Yeah.
The many of the patients that I see, one of the biggest things that's going on is they're so stressed out because it's not happening. And so very similar, there's this aspect of not knowing what's going on. Why is it not working? It really should work. I'm doing everything right. There's this aspect of perfectionism. Like there's like a chapter in my book where I talk about perfectionism. And I am definitely certain that, when someone has a autoimmune condition where they'll have like flare-ups, random flare-ups, or they're so far away from, let's say, what the trigger was for it, that it becomes like a kind of like a source of paranoia or
Yeah.
post-traumatic stress, because it's like you
totally.
never know when it's going to come. And then there's this idea of like, oh my God, if I get on the train, like in New York, I have patients who are like, well, I'm afraid if I take the train and it stops in the tunnel, or there's a delay and I'll be stuck there. And if I have it, like if something happens, and as they think about that, then they start to experience it. So really understanding how important it is to manage what we think, right? Because there is the mind-body connection, whether you believe it or not, right?
Right.
Whether you want to admit it or not. And the thing is that then you really need to manage your thoughts. And that's a big part. And one of them, it also is like, oh, well, I'm never going to get better. And what I have to say, and this is something that the more I've learned more about this, doing, studying in this, doctorate that I'm working on, was, with alternative and complementary medicine, that a lot of Western trained doctors, first of all, they're not trained in that there could be something else. Like, why don't you have your patient, they may say, oh, lose weight or, do this, but they don't really have the tools to help somebody. They may not know, how to personalize. They don't have the time because of the model. But also, they don't believe that people can change. And it is hard to do that. So they may not even say like, hey, listen, I want you to see a person. This is what you're going to need to do. And then you come back to me, or we're going to put you on medication for now. However, you are going to need to do these other things.
Right.
Often it's just write the prescription, or they'll say, you're going to take this medication the rest of your life. And I would hear this more and more with patients that are a little bit older, in their 50s, early 60s, a lot of women that that are transitioning through menopause, they'll have, palpitations, or not just the hot flashes, but other things going on, right? Their chemistry changes. And cholesterol a little high here or there, and then they get into that funnel of, oh, you're this age, you're female, you've got this, you've got that, and then all of a sudden you're on 3 or 4 medications,
Right?
And they will say, you're going to need to take this the rest of your life. This is not the first time I've heard this. I think I will continue.
Please, I was told that in my 30s.
Yeah. But the thing is that's not true.
No.
That is from the perspective of, pharmaceutical companies, perspective of when they do the clinical trials, where they're only following people for, maybe up to a year after, right? And for specific things.
And if you're not look, if you just start a medication and then stop it, you're going to be where you were in the beginning, versus we're talking about doing other things in the meantime.
We need to do something else.
Address the causes.
So. I mean, things like obesity, oh my gosh, and like the heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, like these are like...
They're also reversible.
They are reversible. And the thing is that, but if you don't believe that you can do anything about it, and you go somewhere and they say, well, the only thing you can do is take this medication.
Right.
And there's no guidance of like, if you want a better, because even taking medication, people have a very poor quality of life.
Right.
And so that what we're talking about is not just living longer. We're looking at longevity, and that's a practice in Chinese medicine. We're looking at health and wellness, longevity, meaning you're living long and healthy lives. Right. We call it like a health span, not a lifespan.
Right.
But like your health. What are you doing? Every day you make a choice of what you're going to eat. These are the things, no one's forcing you to eat certain ways. And yet people believe they don't have a choice. Yeah. Right? That the only thing they can do, because there's missing information. And unfortunately, a lot of physicians, I mean, it's true, it's very hard for people to make changes, especially with diet. Right? I think there was some study.
There are I joke all the time. If it were easy, there wouldn't be coaches. Like, there's a reason I have a job.
There's a reason. Right. And the thing is that, changing someone's diet is like asking them to change their religion. It's very much ingrained in their system of reward, emotional attachment to it. There's so much to it.
So much to
And
it.
yeah.
Which
And
goes back to that managing your thoughts. You were talking about it as far as, the stress cycles, right? Getting into that kind of
it's more than
snowball.
that. It's really
But
like,
it's everything. I woke up this morning and I said, I woke up and I said, oh, I'm tired. And I was like, oh, I'm not starting the day that way. I looked over and I said, no, I just haven't had a surge of energy yet. Because I was like, I am not setting myself up to have a day where I feel
tired. Right. And you could, you'd say like, I feel tired. I have to be mindful, like to make sure to, manage my energy today. And I need to adjust, some of the things so I can help myself. Right.
I am also doing those things. But for me, I say, change your thoughts, change your life, right? Like
that's right.
And so also our body hears every thought we have, whether it's accurate
body actually
or not.
tells us our thoughts too. But
but so, I could convince myself like I'm going to be tired all day. Well, no, I don't want to do that. Let's change that story right now. And then, like you said, take the actions to manage, and so it's so powerful, but I want to circle all the way back.
Yeah. So that's definitely
spend an hour on each thing.
Yeah, but it's good that you actually noticed that you were like, wait a second, because oftentimes people hear it's the voice, and then you go, okay, what do you want to do with it? It's telling you, it's giving you information, and you'd be like, oh, thank you for letting me know but then you're like, okay, now I can do something versus like, okay, I'm zombie today, right?
Yeah. And for me, one of my answers is, and you just saw where I live. I will spend extra time barefoot outside today between appointments because that's one of my favorite recharges. But it's just so powerful. And I know sometimes I get the eye roll when we talk about mindset and the power of your thoughts. I say this, I did start my healing journey before I fully believed I could. But if you work on the mindset first, it's like exponentially, the body can just then do what it's supposed to do so much easier. I want to touch on this because there is such an overlap, and I know you see it in your practice and I see it in mine. This really kind of common issue with fertility challenges for women with autoimmunity. I think the numbers are, I don't know the numbers, but I know they're high. And I want to dig in a little more into when I was younger, I thought I guess when we have something we want and we don't get it right away, we get into that thinking there's a problem. And so it took me some time to get pregnant when I was young. In hindsight, it totally makes sense now that I know I wasn't healthy, even though, no one else.
When you say time,
yeah,
like what's time?
No, it wasn't. It took me. I was in my early 20s, and it took me 2 years.
Okay.
Which at the time, so again, it's all relative, right? For me at that time, it seemed like, I started getting into that mindset of, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Why can't I get pregnant? Everywhere you look, there's a pregnant person, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about women, perhaps older women with autoimmunity, although I just didn't know it yet. Women, I know you specialize in, women over 40, right? Like,
or late. Well, now it's really like, because women younger and younger are
having problems
coming through. Well, I don't really. So here's the thing. I don't know if they're having problems. Okay. Like when they come, they're like, oh, I've been trying. How long have you been trying? Oh, 6 months.
Right.
And if you are attempting to get pregnant, but you have all this other stuff, I kind of feel like it doesn't count. It doesn't count because you're oftentimes, I mean, not that it doesn't count, but there's like all this inflammation in their system. And, realistically, if the field is clear, and then you're, trying to get you're actually knowing when the
first of all, you have to be in touch with your body, right?
Right. Your partner, has your partner been checked? Because so a lot of we've been trying to. Well, has your partner been checked? No, it hasn't been checked. Okay, so I don't really consider that
that doesn't count. I get it.
Yeah. There's a lot of the understanding that you need at least 6 months to a year of, let's say, prep time. Like getting your body really healthy, any kind of inflammation, really having that so that you can take on getting pregnant, right? So if you're under a stressful situation, or let's say you have allergies or other kinds of digestive problems, that those are going to influence your whole health, including your sleep, right? And sleep is a big aspect of reproductive hormones. And you can't just say, well, I catch up on my sleep on the weekend. Or, oh yeah, that was a stressful time, but now I'm fine. It's like, actually, it takes a while to get rid of the stress hormones. Yeah. And then if you're constantly redoing it again, or eating, foods that are off, like irregular time, so your blood sugar is going up and down. Even if it's not even a matter of like, do you have diabetes or something? It's really this kind of irregularity and frenetic pacing, and so the body is getting signals that there's not stability. And really, so there are a lot of different factors. But one of the things that I was looking at when you said, for instance, that you were trying, let's say, for two years, and at any given time, a statistic, I don't know, they look at, even with the right timing and everything, they say it's about a 25% chance of conceiving. So we took the 24 months, like 2 years of 24 months, and we looked, and we took a quarter of that, right? What do we have? 6 times, right?
Yeah.
Which was 6 times, really where that might have been it. And then you're like, okay, so we're looking at the other ones. There were all these other things going on.
Sure.
And you start to look at or even within a year, it's 12 times. If you've got the right window and all conditions are
ideal, optimal.
Everything is in order. Everything is in order. No colds, no inflammations, no all of that. Then we're looking at that window per month. And then you go to conceive a human, if you think about it, it's not that much.
Right.
It's just that it's spread out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, so really looking at the long game, it does take the amount of time that it takes. Now, if you have a health condition that's not being addressed, then that actually creates a bigger disruption.
Gotcha. What do you, because I don't know the answer to this yet, but I'm hedging my bets here that it's going to, whether somebody listening to this, is trying to conceive, thinking about conceiving or not, because I'm guessing anything you were going to answer with is going to serve anybody's general health as well. You talked about that year of, I look at it as prepping the garden bed, right? You just don't throw stuff in the ground. I mean, you could, but what is something that you have everybody do, if they're okay, either they've already been trying, or they know I love the ahead of the game thinkers. Maybe they know that they're going to want to, and they find you and they want to get ready. What's a biggie?
The best thing if they can decide that they just need to get healthy no matter what.
Right.
Because this is what they want to do. Right. So something like training for a marathon, you really want to you got to take the steps to build yourself up to. But there are things I'm really all the sugar-free stuff sodas, a lot of processed food. Even if it's supposedly healthy, it's still processed.
Right.
I'm definitely much more plant-based just because they're, the meat sources, and there's so many different things, right, that are going on. Also, really, they got to take a probiotic because no matter what, as healthy as you believe your system is, that there's so many environmental factors, like all the microplastics that are around, and those are endocrine disruptors.
Yeah.
So also, like, stop covering your food in plastic wrap, start using glass, just things that you can do, right? You gotta also, like, what kind of shampoos and stuff like that you're putting on your body, soaps and things that are also endocrine disruptors. We want to, like, wherever you can, you gotta, like, eliminate it, right? To the best that you can. And so those are a lot of things that those are great for people to just do. It's also environmentally better as well.
Right. And I love that you added the best that you can, because that addresses that whole, like, then stress ball, perfectionism. We can't avoid toxins, but if we control what we can, take our power, use glass, eat real, clean, organic, good food, and take those steps with our products and I always say, my home is my haven. We just got back from vacation. I brought dish soap. I brought, like, I take it to another level because it's easy that's not stressful for me. It's more stressful for me to pick up the bottle of blue dish soap and wash something in it and then eat off it. But, like, where you can, that makes sense, right?
Where you can make those changes, because it's not that, like, it's not that, and what it is that you're being proactive. And I think that every action that you take, it moves you forward. So a lot of the focus that women have is, oh, it didn't happen, it's not happening, I'm not, because they're looking at this one thing as their focus. And I'm like, everything you're doing, you're moving closer and closer to it. And so, this idea of, like, immediate gratification, or when I want it, I'm ready, and now it should happen. I mean, I think that's where the big disappointment comes in, their expectation. And then of course there's that relationship with their body, which they haven't had. Right. And then now it's like, well, what do you mean you're not? And it's like, listen, you haven't been listening to your body for so long. And now you want it to
grow a baby.
Yeah. But you don't even understand. You're not understanding, like, how it works. And then I know before you started recording, we were talking a bit about, women's health, and, women's health and women's bodies are constantly being managed. And so the idea, if you don't learn about your cycle when you go and say, I'm having difficulty getting pregnant, and there are going to be plenty of things that are going to be found that might be wrong with you. And it feeds into and ties into this idea of, there's something wrong. There must be something wrong with me. I need, flawed in some way. And that is really a very much a narrative of being less than and not capable. And then also our value is tied to being able to reproduce. Can we produce an heir? Right? And if not, aging is also a big part of it. Everyone's trying to still look like they're 21. Culturally, as we get older, old people older are not respected. And definitely women, it's a lot harder for them. So, signs of fertility are having a child is a sign of fertility and youth and all of that. And so when, someone perceives that they're struggling, it does shake up a deeper core thing going on. And then if they go to a specialist that tells them
they're broken,
you're going to have a lot of trouble, or your eggs are really, like, old or something, that's off. That sets into motion like the panic, like unbelievable.
Yeah. And I'm
fear.
giggling because my perspective is so different now. And it sounds so absurd to me. And I shouldn't be giggling. It's not to be disrespectful, because it triggers, will then increase somebody's stress like that. And then good luck conceiving, right? Because they're living in this world of, oh my gosh, I'm broken. My eggs are old.
The fear mongering that I see. And now it's really because there is an industry, right? Fertility is an industry. Although in the recent issues that have been going on in the Supreme Court, there's a lot of questions about the status of, the medical community with IVF. Like all of that now is coming into question about the practices and, what constitutes life, right? And so this is your genetic material, or how many cells constitute, like a human. And so this is going to be, I know that the fertility community, at least this is shaking it up, right? Really shaking it up.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I don't want to keep you too far over time. I know you've already given listeners some things that they can do, but I always wrap with the question, and it doesn't have to be something you've already mentioned, but if listeners wanted to take one step today to improve their health, improve their fertility garden, reduce their inflammation, all the things, improve their health span. I love that. I'm stealing that word, by the way.
Just me. I forgot where I got it. I was like, lifespan, health span.
I love that. As I said, and I wrote it down, even though I said it, because I was like, I like that. I want to live young until I'm done, which is exactly, health span is a much more succinct way to say that. But what one thing that people can start today to start to move the needle? Well,
there are a couple of practices that I do. So it's like a twofer. I'll give you a twofer. One these are activities to make a stronger mind-body connection. And especially for people who have difficulty meditating, you need to do something that will. And I like to do breath work, like breathing in and out. I do like a really quick Wim Hof that I love it because it's guided. So someone who's like, oh, how am I going to breathe? You just have this is like telling you to breathe in and breathe out and breathe in and breathe out. And what that does is that helps to reset your nervous system. And then you're aware of your heartbeat. You're aware, you can feel your circulation because you are focusing on the breathing in and out, that you really can't think about other stuff that's intruding because you gotta focus on it.
Right.
And someone it's like kind of guiding you. So that's a really easy thing to do. And why do I like it? Because it also increases oxygenation and oxygen saturation, and that changes your mood. So you feel better, more positive outlook, right? So you're inhaling, exhaling, you're doing the oxygen exchange. It's also a way of, we consider detoxing. And then the other is a routine. I got it from this, I saw it from this doctor, this physiotherapist, which is a lymph kind of a thing for like helping to do like your self lymph massage. And it's called like a big 6, but I actually added in to make it like a big 8, or like an 8. And I do that every morning, and I teach it to all my patients to really start to move that fluid in your system, because the lymph system is the waste system. So you get that to help drain out inflammation. So breathing and doing something like that really starts to clear out a lot of inflammation and get you in a good space, and you feel better, right? You will feel better, right? And that's where I would just like to start, like to do it as a practice. So they take 15 minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes, you do it. Anything more than people don't do it.
Right.
But you can do it like the lymph stuff. I do it in the morning while I'm waiting for the coffee, like drinking water, and I'm waiting for the coffee, to brew, and like, and so I'm not doing anything else. I might as well, do this. Yeah. And you feel the stuff kind of moving, and
I love that. Right? It is so important, and circles back to we were just talking about managing toxins. We've got to clear them. It's not just about reducing what we're exposed to, but we've got to support our body in clearing that inflammation and those toxins. So I love to say I somehow knew you weren't going to pick from the list you already gave us.
Oh, did I give? I forgot about it. Okay, so then so these
great.
are the movements. So in Chinese medicine, they've got like a qigong is like a meditative movement, similar to yoga. If you do yoga, you're going to get a similar breathing and moving. And also Tai Chi, those are designed to be a mindful movement with breathing,
right? And
that helps your chi move. So I just contributed to an article for Fitbit. I can share that, and I'll post it on my site as one of the articles. The idea really is you are just helping your system to move, right? And only you can really do that.
Right. No one can do that for you.
Yeah, but once you feel it, see, the thing is once you actually feel the stuff moving, and you're like, oh yeah, now I can, I get it.
Yeah, and it becomes you don't want to stop. You want to feel like I'm sure, want to do that every morning when your coffee's brewing, because you're gonna feel well, and
you'll feel it's actually shift. Pretty instant. What I'll tell you, you do it, you do notice like right away. You'll notice like things are moving, and then that's like the inspiration to be like, oh, this does work, right? It does work.
I love that. For listeners that are listening on the go and may not take the time to check back in the show notes where they'll find their links, where's the best place to find you?
Probably the best place to find me is going to be on Instagram.
Okay.
And it's Integrative Healing Arts NYC.
Love it. Love it. Cho, thank you so much. You have shared such amazing gold with us today. I hope listeners listen to this 3 times. And I cannot encourage everybody to follow you, find you, reach out to you, because you are doing amazing work and you're helping people achieve their health goals, their fertility goals, and their health span goals. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
For everyone listening, remember you can get the show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.